In this video, I'm going to be continuing to backtest gold over the 2024 price action. For anybody that's new to the channel, I'm also going to be doing an in-depth walkthrough of the trading plan and full system that we're going to be testing today before getting into the backtesting itself. So I won't waste any more time. We'll go through the trading plan walkthrough first of all, and then we'll get right into the backtesting. Alright guys, so before we get into the backtesting itself, let's just do a quick walkthrough of the trading plan and strategy itself. If you have seen any of my previous videos, feel free to skip ahead to the backtesting itself because you would have already seen this trading plan walkthrough. I'll go ahead and put the chapters at the bottom of the screen so you can see where the backtesting starts. But for anybody new that hasn't seen any of the previous content, this is the trading plan, and I will also leave this free document for you guys in the description below. You can download it completely for free if you want to check that out. So step one of the system is we're just going to go ahead and identify overall market structure on daily and 4-hour time frames just to see what the overall trend is and where price is likely heading. And then I'm also breaking this down to the hourly time frame just to identify any more of the refined structure and draw on any previous mitigations. What I mean by this, by the way, is if you have a look at this image, you can see here we were in this bearish trend, price created this breaker structure, and you can see it pull back, react from supply, and then push away. What I mean by previous mitigation is whenever price has reacted previously from a supply or demand like this, and then pushed away. That's essentially all I'm doing. I'm just marking this on as a kind of gauge of where price has reacted from the past, and therefore where it's likely heading going into the future. And for anybody that's unfamiliar with my chart layout, I basically distinguish between the mitigated areas and the current points of interest by these two colors. I have blue for the point of interest and then this white box for the areas that have already been tapped into. After that, we obviously want to identify an area where we are actually looking to buy or sell from, and this is what constitutes a point of interest. And what I personally have as a point of interest, I have two main types. The first one is an imbalanced area of supply or demand, which has to create some imbalance. So as you can see here, this one, it was a very clear level of supply. You can see it's the single bullish candle before we had this big sell-off, and it created imbalance. We need to see imbalance created because this basically signals to us that this is an area where people were willing to sell from in the past, and therefore it's very likely that people will be willing to sell from this price if it comes back up into it and react from it again. Obviously, we don't want to just blindly buy or sell from these levels, which is where the confirmation entries come into play, and this brings us over to step 3. So for a confirmation, what we're looking for is for the M5 time frame to present a change of character. So if price comes into this area of supply, we're waiting for an M5 change of character to the downside, which is essentially when price breaks below the current higher low in the 5-minute uptrend as price is trending back towards this area of supply. If we're looking to buy from demand, we're looking for price to break the most recent lower high in the 5-minute downtrend as it comes back down towards that area of demand. Once we see that change of character, and I'm then looking to simply identify an area of imbalance, and I'm setting my limit on this imbalance, and then I'm going to go about, if we go over to step 4, where am I targeting? I'm targeting a mechanical 1 to 3 risk to reward with my stop loss position just above the high or below the low of the change of character. And for anybody that hasn't tried this before, mechanical 1 to 3 risk to reward TP is a massive game changer. It just helps to remove any of that discretion and uncertainty in terms of exactly where to target, and it just gives you a more sort of, headache-free approach to targeting, and also a more mechanical based rule set rather than relying on like a discretionary TP where it's kind of difficult to do that because you could target this low, this low, this low, this imbalance. There's sort of an infinite number of targets, right? So if you just have this mechanical risk to reward, it makes it a whole lot easier and repeatable over time, and that's what I've personally found. And by the way, a 1 to 3 is not just some random number plucked out of thin air. This is based on around 5 or so years worth of back-tested and forward-tested data that I've personally found, and over that data, a 1 to 3 was the optimal risk to reward based on me testing multiple different risk to rewards and multiple different break-even rules as well. Which one other comment I want to make is if we go over to the risk management plan, we're doing 1% risk per trade, but the most important part here is that we're not making break even and we're not taking partials. So we're simply holding the trade to stop loss or take profit, which again was the best and most profitable approach that I've personally found after testing several different break-even rules and several different partial taking rules as well. Now, as I said, this will be available for free in the description below, and at the end of it I've included some more details about how I do trade journaling and also how I consistently improve the strategy using something called ASR, which is like this regular performance review that I do. So that's kind of gone through here in a bit more detail. I'm not going to go through it in this video because that's not the purpose of this video, but I'll leave it for free for you guys in the description below. So that's really everything in terms of the trading strategy itself, and this is going to become a lot more concrete when we head over to the charts and I go through some examples with you guys. So let's do that now. Let's get into the back testing and let's continue to back test gold. Alright guys, so thank you for joining me here over on the charts. So getting right into things, we'll start off on the daily time frame as per usual. So as we can see from where we left off last time, price had just broken the main daily structure, which was this one right here, after coming down and reacting from this sort of demand we had down here. So what we're looking for now is essentially a retracement into the current daily leg for then the continuations. As of right now, this was the point of interest we left off with last time, which was this daily liquidity level. I was looking to buy from that level. You can see we've now had a push away. If not, we have an area of daily demand just below this level. That would be the next point of interest if price were to come down into that sort of area. So if we hop over to the H4, we can see, so if you guys remember from last time, we did capitalize on this move up. However, as of right now, the move has, it's already kind of happened. If we're looking for maybe another buy-in opportunity, we've had, if we just mark on the hourly structure, we've had this change of character. Price has pulled back into the demand. This was also another nice buy, but obviously price has already gotten away. We've had another breaker structure right here. So maybe we can look to capitalize on another buy if price presents one somewhere in this range. I'm not seeing a clear point of interest at the moment, so if I just play this on a little bit, yeah, you can see price isn't really pulling back. Maybe we see some sells now that price has swept this last bit of liquidity, but personally, I wouldn't be looking to sell. I would only be looking to capitalize on some buys after another retracement. But yeah, there you go. You can see prices selling off. So what we would maybe anticipate now, you can see it's broken multiple areas of structure. What I would look for now is simply a sweep of this low back into the demand and then look to maybe capitalize on some more buys from there. Okay, nice. So price has now come into this area of daily demand. If we just mark that on, there we go. And it has also swept this previous low right here. So this is what I'm now kind of anticipating. We've swept liquidity into this area of demand, so I'm going to be looking to capitalize on some more buys essentially from this level. You can see daily time frame is overall bullish as well, so let's see how price reacts to this level. At the moment, obviously there's no indication that price has flipped bullish, so we want to wait for price to flip back bullish before looking to buy from here. And in a case like this, normally I would be using the M5 for a confirmation, but in a case like this, in my opinion, the M5 is not enough because you've had, this like big 4-hour move down, prices in this daily demand. It's quite a big area, so in my opinion, the 5-minute is not enough. I want to see at least the M15 flip back bullish. Maybe we can see that now that the Asia low has been swept as well. Let's have a look. Nothing just yet. Okay, there we go. That's exactly what I was waiting for. We can now see we've had that clear 15-minute change of character. This would be a valid entry, but this is the Asian session, so I'm just going to go to the next session. Okay, cool. So this is now still valid. We've had that change of character. Price has created this area of demand. If we just mark that on. So this is a valid entry. I'm going to set my limit here. Stops slightly below the low, and then I'll if you guys remember from last time, we were just doing a mechanical 1 to 3 TP. So if I place this order, like so, let's see if it retraces. Okay, there we go. So price has retraced for us. Notice as well, like here, for example, even if price is going to continue bearish, you would at least expect it to sweep this liquidity up here, because at the moment, it hasn't really tapped into anything significant. So what I'm thinking is that because it hasn't swept any liquidity and it hasn't reacted from a supply, you would at least expect price to make another move up before maybe continuing lower or maybe continuing higher. Okay, cool. So there you go. That was actually perfect. Price tagged us in, then went to TP. And overall, you can now see it's sort of continuing in that overall bullish trend. So we just mark that on. If we zoom out to the 4 hour, yeah, so overall now I am just looking for more continuations. You can see the daily demand held. Looking on daily time frame as well, this is kind of the next liquidity target for price to reach for. So what I would be looking for here is very simply a retracement, maybe into, we have this whole sort of demand region right here. Maybe if we can see a retracement into there, we can look to get in on another buying opportunity. Actually, or here we have, if we're looking at M15 structure, we have kind of had this breaker structure followed by a retracement into this demand zone. Again, we're going to fast forward the Asian session. If we do that, there we go. Yeah, so in this case, even if price does rally from this demand, there's not going to be a valid entry because you guys can see there's not any change of character here. So let's just monitor how price reacts. Maybe if we see a sweep of Asia low, like so, and then yeah, so price is coming lower. Now I'm going to look at this area of demand that we have below that price has just tapped into. So if we change the color of this and going over to the M5 time frame, looking for that confirmation as always. So currently I would need to see it break this structure and close above it. A wick above is not enough. Right, there we go. So that's what I was waiting for. We've got that change of character. Price has created an area of imbalanced demand. Now, if we wait for a retracement into this area, stops, I'm going to position it just slightly below the demand in case price sweeps the demand, but if it comes any lower than this, I don't really want to be involved anymore. So we'll set this limit and we'll see how it goes. See if price retraces for us. Nice one, there we go. I'm also liking how corrective this pullback looks. If you guys see, it's just pulling back in this kind of sideways, very choppy sort of range, and it hasn't really got any intent to the downside. So let's see if this area holds. Okay, cool. So it didn't hold, price wicked out, but we are still in the trade due to the stop loss placement. And there we go, so TP here. And this is also one of the reasons why I always have my stop loss positioned in a logical place rather than just having it just below the demand. Gold very often will sweep the areas of supply and demand, so I'll position it a bit lower than that just to kind of account for that possibility and yeah, just to kind of give the trade a little bit more room to breathe essentially. Cool, so now looking for more continuations back up to the high. Let's have a look. Okay, cool, so price broke that main structure again. Next point of interest, let's see if price wants to retrace first of all. Yep, so not really a retracement there, that's fine. Okay, let's jump over to lower time frame. Okay, maybe this area, this is a clean 15-minute demand. This is one of the things that I try to emphasize to the guys inside VIP as well, is that, you know, when you have a 4-hour time frame, this very sort of parabolic like this, where there's not really a lot in terms of points of interest. Like if you're looking just on the 4-hour here, the only point of interest is really like this demand all the way down here. But in a case like this, where price is parabolic and moving with all of this momentum, it's very unlikely it's going to retrace all the way back down to here. So one thing that I always try to emphasize is when you have a scenario like this, it's fine to use some of the lower time frames to just have a look at points of interest when you can't see any on higher time frames. So here we have this sort of liquidity level being taken out. Lots of people would be viewing this as a change of character as well, which is one mistake that I see a lot of people making. But when you have a bullish trend like this, right, you don't really want to be interpreting that as a change of character. You want to more so be viewing it as a sweep for some lower prices. Sorry, for higher prices. So yeah, this is the point of interest, looking for price to come into it. There we go. So notice as well, quite corrective looking price action coming down. Price has swept Asia low into the demand. If we hop over to the M5 for the entry, let's have a look if we can get an entry. Right, there we go. So this is valid. We've had M5 change of character. In a scenario like this, you could wait for a retracement, but the risk to reward is already going to be worth it. So I'm just going to do market execution and then target a 1 to 3. You can see we can get a 1 to 3 before the main high is hit. So that's completely fine. In this case, we'll do a market order, not a buy limit. There we go. There we go. It's running nicely so far. Let's see if it can continue. One thing I would probably be a bit cautious of is if price reacts to this liquidity level. Okay, nope. So we've got a rally straight through. Maybe we can look at another entry. Right, there we go. So price is now broken the main high again. It's only wicked above it, but when price is overall bullish like this, I would still consider this to be a breaker structure. Next point of interest, either we see price sweep this low, something like this, or we could look at price respect this sort of extreme, which is the lowest demand in this bullish leg. Apart from that, there's no, if you guys go down to the lower time frame, you can see there's no other point of interest within this whole leg. So that's why I would wait for this one. You can see it on the 2 hour, it looks a lot cleaner. You can see it's this very clear level of demand. Right, there we go. So price is tagged into this area. Again, jumping over to the M5 time frame. Currently want to see this high broken and closed above. Notice how when, like, sometimes you get a wick above the structure, very frequently price will come back down, sweep the low, and then make the real move. Gold does this very frequently, where it comes into the higher time frame demand, sweeps the first rejection of it, then makes the real move, right? So like you have here, you have a sweep of the first tap of the demand, then that change of character, which is our confirmation. And I've also noticed that when this does happen, the trade becomes a lot more likely to play out. So in this case, we have this demand to enter from. In this case, it doesn't make sense to have just to do market execution, right? Because this is going to kind of just completely ruin the risk to reward. So in a case like this, I would wait for a retracement, have stops positioned slightly below that demand, just in case price wicks out one more time, which I said before is very common on gold, particularly on a pair like gold. I think GJ does it a lot as well. Not so much on GU and EU, they tend to respect the demand, but this is one of the sort of key characteristics of gold. And also one of the reasons why I like to emphasize only focusing on 2 to 3 different pairs, because they all have their own sort of unique characteristics and tendencies. So focusing on like 1 or 2, maybe 2 to 3 pairs max, it just allows you to kind of get familiar with the different tendencies of the different pairs. Whereas if you traded 10 different pairs, you wouldn't really familiarize yourself with that kind of those unique characteristics, right? So here we're tagged in. This is also one of the other key characteristics of gold in that it does these very impulsive moves. It looks like it's going to reverse, but ultimately just sweeps liquidity and continues higher. And yeah, there you go. So that's another perfect case of that happening and playing out. So overall, we can see price did hold this demand. It still hasn't swept the external high, so I would be looking to take price up to target this liquidity. Maybe this area of demand, this is my next point of interest. I think this is the Asian session still though. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to the next session. Okay, yeah, so you can see Asian session pushed up. There wasn't a valid entry here anyway, so that's fine. And it has now broken this main structure again. Cool, so we can now look at another buying opportunity. Price is overall still bullish, and overall, if we zoom back out, my idea would be to see price head back towards this previous high. You also have this first one, but because that is positioned just below the daily external high, if we get a reaction from this first one, I would just be viewing that as a pullback for higher prices. So I wouldn't really want to be looking at that one, to be honest. Okay, next point of interest, we have this area of demand. Obviously as well, considering the momentum here, you wouldn't really expect, you know, a deeper retracement just because of how slowly price is pulling back and how sort of bullish it was beforehand. So if we have a look here, has given us a change of character, but there's no imbalance, so this is not quite valid yet. And like I said before, in a case like this, it's very common price will come back down and take the lows if it hasn't created any imbalance. Yeah, there you go. So it did that in this case as well. Okay, cool. So did respect the zone, but obviously there was no entry there. So let's keep playing price. Okay, so price looks to be coming lower. Let's zoom back out. Like I said before, this is one of the key characteristics of gold where it does make these impulsive moves. Looks like it's about to reverse, but then just kind of does this to fuel another move higher. And yeah, if you notice, that liquidity level I said, that's where price has sold off from. At the moment though, it's sold off, reacted from this area of demand, sweeping some of these previous higher time frame lows. So I'm going to look for another buy here. Only thing here is that there's no structure for price to present a confirmation from. So maybe we can see another sweep of this low or something like that. Okay, so price is coming lower again. Next buy zone would be, actually it would be here. So this is the last point I'm going to consider buying from. So you can kind of see price has swept this last liquidity in the 4-hour trend leg, and the 4-hour prior to this caused the change of character. So this is the 4-hour change of character. So one perspective you can take here is that this is just a retracement into that current bullish leg for higher prices. So I'm going to monitor here, see if price can present an entry. Currently we would need to see this high broken. This is not quite valid. If it was, we could enter from this demand, but price has not closed above the structure just yet. Okay, now it has. So this becomes valid. In terms of entries, I would look to enter from this demand, seeing this low as liquidity above it. So if we set the limit here, stops just below the low, and we'll go for a 1 to 3. Obviously, if it keeps pushing up, we can look for a different entry, but as of right now, this is a valid entry. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's coming back down there, to be honest. I'm going to keep it for now. Okay, actually, so now, adapting to the new breaker structure, what we can see is that if we go back to the M5, so we've now had price push up more and create some more liquidity above this demand zone. So this is the one I'm now going to enter from, and my thought process here is that if price comes any lower, it's probably not going to respect this demand. You know, you wouldn't expect it to come all the way back down there now. So just kind of adapting to the structure here and what price is presented. I'm going to set my limit here. You can see as well, it's a nice sort of 30-minute demand zone. You've got this kind of trend line just above it as well. There we go, so we're tagged in. Nice reaction so far. Let's see if price can continue to push. Okay, no, so little loss on that one. I would still consider buying from here, maybe from this demand, but now I would probably want to see another confirmation in this area if price comes down into it. Let's see, it's induced it at the moment. Yeah, we've also got Asia low above it, so I'm going to probably wait for that. Okay, maybe not. So you can see kind of what happened there. Price, if we go over to the 15, it swept that last bit of liquidity in the range rather than coming down into the demand, and has now broken structure again. So slightly annoying, we were a little bit too early there, but overall the analysis is still playing out. So what I would look for now is more buys essentially, if we can get a retracement. Okay, again, you've kind of got to consider the momentum here. We could say this is a point of interest, but just looking at how price is pulling back here and notice how corrective it is, you wouldn't really expect it to pull all the way back down there. At the moment, this is the Asian session, so I'm just going to fast forward that. Going over to the M15. In terms of points of interest, we could maybe look for... So how I would look to play a situation like this is kind of just have a look at some of these liquidity levels and see how price reacts to them. Maybe it does come back down to this one, but I would also monitor these. Yeah, it doesn't even look like it wants to come down that far, to be honest. Yep, so doesn't look like price is coming back down there now. So zooming back out. Drawing on the breaks of structure as well, we've got this structure forming. You can see as well, looking to the left, price is making its way towards, like there's nothing, if you look on the 4 hour, this is a pretty nice scenario, because looking to the left, there's nothing for it to react from until it at least sweeps this liquidity. And then if it does sweep that, you wouldn't expect a complete reversal from there. You would expect it to maybe, if anything, do a small pullback for then it to later come up towards these previous highs up here. So as of right now, looking for a pullback and looking to buy up to those levels. Okay, maybe this area, this is the next point of interest. I'm going to include that wick as well. Okay, we've got some nice inducement above it now as well. You can see we've got like 4 lows resting above this area. This is the Asian session, so I'm going to fast forward. Okay, so London opens. There's no structure here though for it to break, so this is going to be very difficult to find an entry. The only thing that would validate this for me would be if price can take out the low and then cause a change of character. Apart from that, there's not anything valid there for me. Okay, yeah, there you go. So you can see price respected the demand, pushed up, broke the high, but there was no confirmation. That happens sometimes, obviously. So next zone that I would look at, we still have this 4 hour demand, slightly below if we draw on this whole region. So this is my next point of interest. This is the next area I'm going to be looking at. Actually, we also have this one. This was already mitigated, but it's a clear demand zone. I also like this one as well because you do have this liquidity resting above it. Okay, so let's see how price reacts to this. Again, this is a similar scenario to what I mentioned before, where we're in this overall bullish trend. It looks like a change of character, so people are going to be looking for a retracement to sell. But because of that overall bullish trend, I would more so be viewing this as a sweep for lower prices, for higher prices. So over to the M5, see if we can get an entry here. Okay, so this is nice. So notice how It didn't respect the demand, it swept the demand and then gave us a change of character. One thing I always emphasize inside VIP is that when these areas of higher time frame supply and demand are swept like this, so price goes slightly lower, the trade becomes a lot more high probability. So I'm going to wait for a retracement into, this is probably going to ruin the risk to rewards. Let's just have a look. Can we get a 1 to 3 on this? Yeah, I'm happy to enter here. I'm just going to set this. And we'll do limit order, dump. Cool, so we're tagged in. Let's have a look if this continues to push. Nice reaction so far. Nice, there we go. Perfect TP actually, price reverse straight afterwards. So zooming back out, you can see it respected this first one, but it has now swept the lows back into the 4-hour demand we had marked just here. If we mark that on. So I would definitely be willing to look at another buy from here if price presents an entry. This is another scenario though where there's no M5 structure until price breaks this high. So for a confirmation we would need to see that broken, which it seems likely, to be honest, based on how it's pushing up. Yep, there we go. So that's our change of character. Not really seeing anything to enter from. Okay, no, so price just pushed straight up. Wasn't an entry there, that's fine. So now you notice how price has broken the external high. So we can get rid of some of this internal structure because it's no longer relevant. And by the external high, by the way, I mean this one, which was the main daily trend high. As you guys can see right here, was the daily trend high. And like we said before, price respected the demand. It's overall still bullish. So overall looking for more buys. One of the mistakes I see a lot of people making is when the external high is taken out like this, they will look to sell. But when price is very bullish like this, that's, you know, it's not a very good idea. Price is more than likely just continuing over to the upside. So I would prefer here just to look for some more buys. Not currently seeing a point of interest, so let me just let this develop a little bit. Okay, cool. So now we have this hourly demand. This is another one of those cases where you want to go to the lower time frames to look for a point of interest, just because if you're only on the higher time frame, there's not really, like if you go on the 4-hour, for example, you can't really see a clear point of interest unless price came all the way down to this demand. But given the momentum, it's very unlikely to do that, right? If this demand does not hold, we also have this wick that we could use as a point of interest. Reason being, it's the last bit of liquidity before this imbalance below. But equally, this demand zone itself would be valid. So I'm going to monitor this. If we fast forward, you can also see Asia low is built above the demand, which is quite nice. Right, so price is in this demand. If we just slightly refine it, Asia low has been taken. So you've got to think here, the sort of standard mindset would be that this is like a breaker structure. People are trying to sell on like a pullback. So what I'm going to look for here is a buy instead. Currently there's no confirmation, so let's just play this on a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So that's perfect. Notice again, demand was swept. It didn't hold. So this now becomes a trade that's more likely to play out because you've got that demand being swept, impulsive move afterwards, breaking structure, and a very clear level of or area of demand. So I'm going to set my limit on this area. I want to have stops a little bit below in case price sweeps this demand. Like I said before, gold does this very often where it will sweep the demand and then continue higher. And as always, just targeting a 1 to 3. We'll place this and we'll see how it goes. There we go. So it respected the demand first of all. Let's have a look if it continues. If you missed this first entry, I would look for a sweep of these lows to get back in. to target the high. Yeah, there you go. So you can see that played out. London swept Asia. We've got that rally over to the upside. There was probably another entry here, but because we were in this first one, I wouldn't have taken that. Cool, so price is now continuing over to the upside. It's broken structure again. Next point of interest would be, you can see we've got this demand zone with some liquidity resting above it. I wouldn't buy from this demand just because there's no liquidity being taken. I would see this as the liquidity. So you want to ideally wait for this to get taken out before looking to buy. Let's see if it takes it out. Very often you'll get this initial reaction, but price will later come back down lower. So let's have a look. Can we get an entry from this area? So you did get a change of character just here. It's quite difficult to see, but there's no imbalance, so this would not be a valid entry for me. Yep, there you go. So price just continued up. It wasn't an entry there, but the analysis did play out quite nicely. Looks like it might want to come back for the lows. Let's have a look. Cool, and it's coming lower. You can see that momentum coming in. Next point of interest would be, you can see we've got this. So again, this is one of those scenarios where price is very bullish, higher time frame, right? So lots of people are going to be viewing this as a change of character. Everybody's now looking to sell. What I would view this as instead is a sweep for higher prices, particularly because you've got this last bit of liquidity before this imbalance as well. These are very reactive levels that price very often reverses from. So let's just monitor. Obviously always waiting for lower time frame to present its hand before we actually look to enter, and that can that's really what gives us our edge, is waiting for lower time frames to give us that indication that price wants to flip bullish, rather than trying to predict where price is going to bottom out and flip bullish. So just consolidating at the moment, but I would want to see price break this high for a confirmation. Let's see if it can do that. Yep, there you go. So liquidity swept, price has now flipped bullish on the M5. Gonna fast forward the Asian session, and let's see if we can get an entry here. In terms of entries, I would look at probably this demand. Again, I'm on the M15 here just because it's a lot clearer to see than on the M5. So I'm going to set my limit here. Stops, I want to have it a little bit wider in this case, just in case the area does get taken out. And as always, just go for a 1 to 3. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. Okay, nope, so it doesn't look like it's pulling back down now, so delete that limit now. Overall, you can see the analysis is playing out. Maybe we can look at a retracement into this demand. Right, there we go, so price has come into it. Yeah, so this would be valid actually. You can see we've got change of character here. We've got this area of imbalanced demand. Got some liquidity above it. Liquidity has been taken out to the left. So I'm going to enter here, stops slightly below, and 1 to 3 TP. Let's see how it goes. Looks like it's missed us. Limit is still valid until this high gets broken. Yeah, that's annoying. Just slightly missed us, but this is now an invalid limit because the main high was broken. Nice, so this would be the next point of interest. We've got this area of demand right here. You can see price gravitating towards the main trend high. let's see how this reacts. There's no M5 structure here yet though, so it's not quite valid for me at the moment. Okay, nope, so looks like price is coming lower. Next point of interest is this. You can see that price is still, this was the demand it previously reacted from, but I would want to see this initial rejection taken out. So no, it reacted from the demand itself. Maybe we could have got an entry from there, but to be honest, when you have a case like this, I would at least want to see that liquidity taken. Yeah, like that. So you can see liquidity taken. The demand low was also taken. So if we can get a confirmation here, this is a valid trade. Currently, the structure I would want to see broken is this one. This would give us a change of character. Yep, there we go. So we've got that confirmation. We've got an area of imbalanced demand. I'm going to set my limit on this area. I'm going to fast forward Asian session first. Nice, we've got some liquidity resting above it now as well. Damn. So price just took us out by a couple pips and now is rallying. Let's look if there's a re-entry here. No, not really. I'm just going to let this develop. Yep, so took out the lows one more time. Yeah, so zooming back out. Next point of interest for me, still kind of looking at this bullish leg. We do have an area of 4-hour demand down here. I wouldn't really be interested in selling down. Cool, so that 4-hour demand wasn't respected, but it was swept. Remember I said before that gold does this very frequently where it sweeps the demand, then gives you an entry. Yep, as it has done here. So you can see demand was swept on higher time frame. We then get that change of character. We have an area of imbalanced demand. I should have already been in this trade, but played price slightly too quickly. So we'll see if it retests. Ideally it does. And then we will place this order like so. Hopefully it comes back down for us. Doesn't look like it wants to. Right, there we go. So we're tagged in. Okay, nope. So little loss on that one. It's fine. At the moment, it has just re-grabbed this low. So maybe if it can break, we would need to see it break this structure up here. Okay, so it did do that, but we didn't really get a pullback for an entry. You can see now it has broken this structure. Next point of interest for me would be this demand, seeing this first one as liquidity. There we go, so price has retraced into it. Let's see, can we get an entry here? There's no M5 structure currently, so let's just play this on a bit. Okay, Price is pushing up towards the high. This is nice actually. So price is retracing before sweeping that external high. It's come back down into demand, taken out Asia low. Let's have a look if we can get an entry from here. Yep, so this is perfect. As you can see, swept the demand, then gave that change of character. We've got an area of imbalanced demand right here. So I'm going to set my limit on this area. Stops, I want to have it slightly below. And again, just 1 to 3 standard TP. There we go, we're tagged in. I like the fact here as well, they did build some liquidity above the demand. Nice, there we go. So TP on that one for 3%. But yeah, nice one guys. So I think I'm going to end this session here. We got up to around September. So we'll finish this off in the next backtesting session. But if you did like this one, make sure to drop a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these future videos. And if you did miss the previous part, watch this video next where we go through from around, I believe, from around April to August 2024 on 2024 price action on gold. So if you missed that one, watch this one next, and I will see you guys in the next video.